Hello, today in this video, linked to the Swedish Math 2B syllabus, we are going to talk about the equation of a straight line. So, if we have a function that when you graph it on a coordinate system, here's my x-axis, here's my y-axis, let's choose the straight line tool here, if it looks like a straight line, then the equation of this function is given by the following. Y, change back to the pen tool, y equals, in the Swedish system at least, the Swedish convention is y equals kx plus m. A bit confusing, but in the English-speaking world, we normally talk about the equation of the straight line, y equals mx plus c. But I want you to get to know this form, because this is the formula given in your formula booklet. But they have the same meaning. Anyway, what is the meaning of these different numbers here? Well, this here, the value of k, is something called the gradient. So the x coefficient, the number in front of the x, is called the gradient. It tells you something about the slope of the line. And the value of m is called the y-intercept. It tells you where the graph intersects the y-axis. Okay, let's look at these three straight lines. These straight lines have the following equations. This is y equals 0.5x, or y equals x divided by 2. This line has the equation y equals x, and this line has the equation y equals 2x. Now, if we compare these three equations with the equation for a straight line, y equals kx plus m, then we can ask ourselves the question, well, what is the value of k and what is the value of m in each of these cases? Well, let's have a look. In this case, the value of k is equal to 2, the number in front of the x. But what's the value of m? Well, there is no m, so m equals 0. So the gradient is 2 and the y-intercept is 0. In this case, what's the value of k? Well, there is an invisible 1, if you like, in front of the x. So k is equal to 1, the gradient is 1. However, there is no m value. There is no y-intercept. So m is 0. And in this case, k is equal to a half, or 0.5, but m is also equal to 0. So what does it mean that the value of m equals 0? Well, it means that they all go through the origin. So if m equals 0, then the y-intercept is 0, and all these lines pass through the origin, we can say that in these cases y is proportional to x. Let's talk about another special case. What happens when k equals 0? Well, let me bring up a graph window. These three. Let's add the following functions. Y equals 1, y equals 2, and y equals minus a half. What do these lines look like? Well, they have a y-intercept because they go through the y-axis somewhere, but they're completely horizontal, so they have no or zero gradient. Just grab this and copy it into my other window. So let's annotate this diagram. This was the line whose equation was y equals minus a half. This line had equation y equals 1, and this one's equation was y equals 2. So in this case, the x coefficient, well, there is no x's, so the x coefficient, or k, equals 0, but m equals 2. In this case, there's no x's, so the slope, or the x coefficient, is 0, but the y-intercept is 1, m equals 1. Again, in this case, k equals 0, but m equals minus a half. So common for all of these three is when k equals 0, the line is a horizontal line going through the y-axis at the coordinates 0, m. Let's save this slide and create a new sheet. So let's do some simple examples. You might be asked to find the gradient or k value and the y-intercept, which is the m value, for the following cases. Y equals 3x minus 1, y equals minus 2x, and y equals 5. Remember, we're comparing all the time with the equation of a straight line, y equals kx plus m. Well, in A, the value of the gradient is the coefficient, the x coefficient, the number in front of the x. So in this case, k equals 3, and the m value is the number, the constant on its own, which doesn't have anything to do with x. In this case, minus 1. Don't forget the negative sign. In B, the x coefficient is minus 2. Again, don't forget to take the minus sign. So the gradient is minus 2. But what about the y-intercept? Well, there is no constant term here, so that's equal to 0. This would be a line going through the origin. And in C, what's the k value? Well, there are no x's, so the x coefficient is 0. However, there is a constant term, so the y-intercept, or the m value, is 5. In the second example, we can model the cost of going by taxi using the following function. So the cost of a taxi fare can be modeled using the following function. Y equals 55 plus 25x, where y is the total cost in Swedish crowns, and x is the trip distance in kilometers. So we might be asked in the question to state and explain the meaning of the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is the constant term. Now, notice here they've tried to trick you by swapping around the terms. But the constant term, the y-intercept, is the number which doesn't have anything to do with x, in this case 55. So the y-intercept is 55. And don't forget the units. Here we're working in talking about costs in crowns. And the meaning of this is the flat rate fee. So even before you travel any distance, if you step in the taxi, you'd have to pay 55 crowns. State and explain. They also might ask you to state and explain the meaning of the gradient of this function. Well, the gradient is the term in front of the number in front of the x coefficient. So the gradient is 25. Now the units here would be Swedish crowns per kilometre. This would mean that for every kilometre you travel, you'd have to pay an extra 25 crowns.